Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, yesterday was an extraordinary day in the United States. The Pentagon issued a statement slamming essentially a news talk show host called Tucker Carlson. Because the Pentagon didn't care for an item on Tucker Carlson's show. Tucker Carlson was making fun of President Biden's statement about women in the military, in which he was discussing various uniforms that were now are coming into effect in the Pentagon.
Hairdos.
Yeah, maternity suits for aviators. This is, very, hairstyles, what were the kind of hairstyles that women can wear. And he contrasted that with China, which is going the other direction because it's expressing concern that Chinese men are becoming effeminized. And they're saying that if we're going to have a military, we want kind of manliness in our military. And so he's saying, well, here we have our Pentagon, which is undergoing some kind of a social experiment. And here are the Chinese Defense Department, and they're concerned with trying to instill martial virtues into their young men. So perfectly reasonable item. But here was the Pentagon, in other words, bureaucrats, not elected officials, bureaucrats slamming Tucker Carlson and denouncing him for his lack of any knowledge, understanding of what goes on in the military. And this is rather troubling. I mean, at one level it's quite amusing. At another level it is troubling. We really can't have the military attacking a journalist. I mean, you can have an elected official attacking a journalist, but a military, that are supposed to be subordinate to everybody, going out of its way to attack a journalist, that I think is very troubling.
Well, it's not only troubling, it's bizarre. I mean, they're supposed to follow the lead of elected officials and to implement policies. It's not for them to turn around and criticize people that criticize their policies. I'm truly astounded by all of this. And Tucker's further point, and because this is what they're focusing on, but I mean, what is the purpose of the military? Is it to make people feel good?
Exactly.
Okay, is it for them to feel their to actualize themselves? I mean, also, members of the military, the taxpayer will foot the bill for their transition, whoever whether they want to be and all that. Well, why should the taxpayer pay for that? They're making a choice. Right. That's a choice.
Right.
Okay. And so why don't you get get Wokism on your side and maybe they'll help you. But why should the taxpayer have to do that? The U.S. military, often used very badly, in my opinion, but it is to protect the sovereignty of the country. That is its mission. Mm-hmm. And it is to follow the lead of elected officials. That's our tradition. Mm-hmm. And so why they are lashing out at a journalist that has a legitimate observation to the point of mockery, which I thought Tucker Carlson was spot on. I mean, and also we've had, lowering of standards to make it equitable. Okay, no. When you're in a military situation, you don't want it to be the mediocre middle. Okay, you want the best. Okay, and they almost pour, everyone's talking about this 1.9 trillion, it's like $800 billion every year they pump into the military, okay, every year, and it gets larger and larger.
Right.
Okay, so I want that money to be well spent, and I don't want it to spend on mediocrity, because mediocrity, history tells you, loses.
Well, that's exactly right, and the military is a very strange kind of place for social experimentation. You want to have a military that is as effective a fighting unit as possible. And this seems to be the least of the military's concerns right now. You have Lloyd Austin, whose main goal apparently is to weed out, white nationalism, white supremacism, but evidently Trump supporters, because obviously there are quite a lot of Trump supporters within the military. That's his primary objective. And then you have Biden, who's, well, whether it's Biden or whoever is advising him, think that the most important thing military should now be doing is promoting women to the most senior positions in the military, and getting their uniforms to be exactly right for women. It's a very strange kind of thing. It's and that was the point that Tucker Carlson was making. And when the Pentagon lashed out at him, they didn't even address that particular issue. Is how effective is this U.S. military?
What Tucker was talking about was a meritocracy. And historically, this is where one of the most important institutions in American history. It's, as we've said in the past, recent past, when we had desegregating the military way before the general society. Okay, we talk about social engineering. That you need. That should have been done, and I'm glad it was done, and I think it was very successful. I mean, look who's Secretary of Defense. All right, now my beef here is in agreeing with Tucker is that we need merit must be above your sexual preferences. Okay, it's your ability to do your job. What are you going to go? Are you going to, when you're going into battle? Are you going to be thinking about critical race theory? I hope not. I hope that's not what you're thinking about.
But that's the thing, that when you get something like the desegregation in the military, that does help to make it into an effective military union. When you get into the realm of sex and gender, it's hard to see how this helps military. I mean, men and women in combat, that's still an experiment that we as yet don't know the outcome. We know how men respond when they see women hurt, women injured. Would that stop them, fighting effectively? We know what happens when men and women are in close quarters. There's fraternization, you can say. So that is a social experiment, and therefore whether this will lead to an effective military, that's still very much up in the air. And I mean, Tucker Carlson's point was, well, the Chinese aren't going down that way, and that's something we should pay attention to. So the fact that they're actually thinking about, hey, how do we make sure that our young men are not effeminized?
Well, this is just the wrong priorities. I mean, if someone had told me a year ago is that this is going to be the top priorities of the next Secretary of Defense, I would have thought you're bonkers. Right. I mean, seriously. And I think, and that was the commentary that Tucker was giving his very large audience. I mean, what are our priorities? Our priority should be protection of the homeland, of our borders, of our sovereignty, and to have the best fighting force possible. And since we throw so much money at them, we should get something in return, okay? And then, and looking for having some kind of ideological purge, right, and worrying about, I mean, how many pregnant pilots are there? I don't know, okay? But I mean, is it a significant number? And are they the best pilots we have? If that's the case, then okay, get them new uniforms, okay?
But again, you raise a very important point there. If this is a real issue that so many women, are getting pregnant, then again, well, are we getting an effective fighting unit? I mean, how many of the deployed troops, women, are going to have to be sent home or will need maternity care? Because that's a real issue. You can't just simply say, well, I'm afraid we can't send this colonel into combat because she's 4 months pregnant. So I'm afraid we're going to have to move her elsewhere. So, I mean, again, that takes away from your effectiveness as a fighting force.
But one of the great things that the military's tradition is they're family oriented. They're family oriented people, okay? And we want to have families. But if you
but that's a different.
Hang on.
No, I mean, I all right,
supporting families is a really good, I think, good idea. So, but having families and demanding equity at the same time, that's like trying to square a circle. Okay, they're two separate things. I mean, I want to be careful. I'm very pro-family, and members of the military should have it.
No, but those are two separate issues. I mean,
That's what I just said. That's what I just said.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, pro-family, fine. But if it's sort of like, you want a fighting force, then you can't sort of have having families, and what you're gonna bring, you bring your child to the battlefield. Well, I couldn't get an au pair to look after the child, so I have to bring her here to the battlefield. I mean,
we're in complete agreement on that. Okay, I just don't want to say is that we should be against pregnant women. No, we shouldn't. No, but you can't build a military, a active, fighting military, and you're going to be adding in all these family issues. No, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Because that is the next agenda. Hey, well, I couldn't find someone to look after my kids, so I have to bring them with me into combat. I mean, it's
what this whole issue here is, Tucker brought up the obvious, okay, about what is the military supposed to do? Is it part of this where academia invented this Wokism and it flooded into popular culture and society, and now it's seeping into the military? No, we need to put barriers around this. They have a very specific mission, okay? Very specific.
Right.
And if you delude that mission, then you delude the very purpose for them to exist.
Well, I think that's right. And to be honest, the recent record of the US military has been uninspiring, to say the least. And the United States didn't fight particularly well in Iraq, didn't fight particularly well in Afghanistan. And to be honest, they didn't fight particularly well in Vietnam. So, that's another thing that you have to start sort of taking into consideration. How are you going to turn this into an effective fighting force? Because it doesn't look like these very politicized generals who are coming to the fore have any real idea or have any interest in doing that.
One thing that we have to keep in mind is that this fighting, being a member, an active member of the military, in many cases is a family tradition. And I think that should be preserved, okay? Because doing public service, I admire a lot of people that go into the military. I don't admire what they're told to do. That's something very, very different. But if you want this to be something that people are not, they don't want to get involved in politics. I don't want to do, if you usually join the military to stay away from politics.
Right.
And now people say, why should I get involved in this? Okay.
But that's exactly what's happening, because the people who come to the top in the military now are extremely political. Somebody like Lloyd Austin is an extremely political person. They're the ones who get promoted.
And he at one time, I think he ran was it the Iraq or the Afghan? One or the other, and he acquitted himself awfully. Okay, like everyone else. Okay, so I mean, so I guess he's better at bureaucratic Wokism than fighting a military campaign, because that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, no, me too. All right, Peter. We will, of course, maintain our laser-like focus on the doings of the U.S. military. We are on Rumble now. Please look us up on Rumble. And remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.